Well, very, very happy to have a couple of critics here in the neighborhood on Dave's Gone By. And before you start shrinking away, remember, I've been a critic myself for 30 to 40 years now. And I've known one of these two people for quite a lot of that time because Jay Handelman I met through the American Theater Critics Association, which he has chaired at least once, or is it twice, Jay? How,
I had two stints as the chair for 2 years. I was on the board for 6 years and then again another 6 years and 4 years altogether as chair.
So yeah, he's been part and parcel of ATCA is what we call it because he's been a major theater critic in South Florida for about as long or even longer than I've been a critic. And sitting next to him is someone else. Let me give you the details of Carrie Seidman. Carrie has written for the New York Times, the LA Herald Examiner, the Albuquerque Journal, and the Albuquerque Tribune. I mean, that's a double stint right there. She is the former dance critic of the Sarasota Herald Tribune, and also we can get into some of her other non-arts related work because she is an advocate, an expert on dealing with the mentally ill. So I have her on speed dial. But Jay and Carrie are with us to talk about their uniting with a purpose. Because now that they're not really technically with the Sarasota Herald, they still want to see theater and dance and cover it and write about it. So they have formed a website. And the website is called
Artsbeat.org.
Artsbeat, B-E-A-T, artsbeat.org. Jay, Carrie, thank you for being with us in the neighborhood. What is artsbeat.org?
You want me to go? Okay. So it's a nonprofit arts reporting and reviewing website. We were concerned that as we left, well, Carrie left several years ago from the local Maine newspaper, and I just left in September. We were concerned that arts coverage would diminish. There wasn't a lot beyond what we were doing in other newspapers. There were some, and the local magazine has arts coverage. But we were concerned that when arts organizations needed more attention to help keep them alive while they've been struggling after the pandemic, there wasn't going to be much. And I had this idea to start a nonprofit sort of modeled on a program in South Florida. We're in Southwest Florida on the West Coast. So there's a program called Artburst Miami, which is a nonprofit. They hired a bunch of freelancers, many of whom used to work for the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel and the Miami Herald, and they cover everything. And they have their website, and they offer it to all the local newspapers to publish for free to make sure that those stories get widely read. And so I thought that's something that could work here. I talked to the Artburst people, and they weren't really interested in expanding. So been thinking of this for a couple of years, brought Carrie on board, I don't know, 6 months or more ago. And we've just launched it toward the end of January. And we're going to be doing features, one big feature a week, maybe a shorter story. We're going to do reviews as they come up, which is pretty regularly at this time of year in the winter season here in Florida. And we'll be doing a weekly newsletter, and we're working toward doing what you're doing and having a weekly podcast. I don't know if it's going to be 3 hours. We just actually had a conversation yesterday. Carrie was thinking 10 minutes. I was thinking an hour. So we haven't gotten to that point
We're
yet.
gonna compromise on that one.
So, but we are also going to share. I mean, it's all going to be available for free to people. So we want people to read it, and we're hoping that they will also make contributions to make that possible. And we're offering it to all the local newspapers and TV stations and anybody who might want to use it, our stories in some way, and hoping that that will help bring attention to what's happening here. And this is a very active arts community here in Sarasota.
And as both of you have been involved in Sarasota and reviewing Sarasota, what are some of the major theaters and major dance organizations there that are, because I'm in Maryland and most of my life was in New York. I know the theaters there. What's out in your neck of the woods? Are there more than 3 or 4 theaters?
Yeah, I mean, well, there are several equity theaters. The Oslo Repertory Theater is the oldest. of all of them. There's Florida Studio Theater, which, excuse me, may be the biggest by subscription. The West Coast Black Theater Troupe, which is about 25 years old. And there's a newer entry, the Urbanite Theater, which I don't know exactly what their relationship is with Equity. They have Equity actors, and it's a fully professional company. And beyond that, there's the Sarasota Opera, which is a major regional opera company, Sarasota Orchestra, which is in the process of raising money to build a major new music center, and I think they've raised like $100 million or something so far.
I donated 50 million of that, by the way. I
I
felt that it
think
was important. Now, let's get Carrie in here. Carrie, do you know about the dance? What are the dance companies there?
Well, the Sarasota Ballet is here, which has gained a lot of acclaim over the last 10 or 15 years because they've started to travel elsewhere, and they've revived many of the works of a British choreographer named Frederick Ashton that hadn't been seen in America in many years, if at all. So that's the predominant dance company, but there's also Sarasota Contemporary Dance, which does contemporary work. And there's a newish company that's about 2 or 3 years old called Azara Ballet, which actually was featured in the New York Times last year, which is a kind of a new model for a ballet company with an emphasis on caring for the dancers' mental health and sort of trying to defray many of the ballet stereotypes that have been detrimental in terms of
Like what? What is a ballet stereotype? Just that their feet are
in terms
problematic
well,
for
they're stereotypes for a reason, because a lot of them were true.
yeah.
That dancers have to be very thin, that dancers have to work very long, brutal hours for little pay, that all
That's critics also. Yeah,
ballet directors are horrible, mean, or lecherous. They're trying to create a company that kind of sees ballet in a different way than it has been seen in the past.
any ballet themed TV show. We watched one a few years ago. I can't remember what it was called. That was awful, but it's like Azara created like the anti version of that.
Anti-ballet.
And there was one just this past year called Étoile, where it's just like these maniacal leaders and dancers living on water because they may have to weigh in the morning or somebody's going to put their fingers around their waist. They're trying to counter that, and so their dancers may be a little more fuller size than people are used to, or they may have mental health challenges that they work through that.
It's also gender fluid, so they have dancers of all gender identities.
But beyond this, Sarasota is, well, not officially, but considers itself the cultural and arts capital of Florida, and it's a relatively small area. There's like 350,000 people in Sarasota County, I think, and maybe 75,000 in the city of Sarasota. But there's 40 or more nonprofit arts organizations here, varying sizes. I mean, there's everything from something that might perform, a group that might perform once a year, to things like the opera and the ballet company that have regular full seasons.
Speaking of being a nonprofit, you guys are a 501c3, and no, you're not. So how are you structured?
We're not actually. We are a collaboration with several other organizations. One of which is the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, which is our umbrella 501c3. So we get our nonprofit status through them. We also collaborate with a group called Suncoast Searchlight, which is a digital investigative journalism website here locally, and with a company called Dream Large, which how do I even explain? It has a hand in a lot of things.
They now own Sarasota Magazine. They've got a lot of different businesses, and the head of that company has been instrumental in helping us put all this together. He's a real visionary person, doesn't like attention. But he's
Very entrepreneurial.
yeah, and he's put all the pieces together that helped us get this going.
Now, speaking of getting going, Carrie, were you a dancer at some point, and what got you into?
I was a dancer. I never danced professionally. I had hoped to dance professionally. I danced very seriously when I was younger, and when the time kind of came to go off to New York and audition, my parents were like, "That's a really terrible idea. You're going to go to college instead." So I didn't ever dance professionally, but I have had many iterations in dance. I've been a dance teacher. I've owned a dance studio. I still dance today. I do competitive ballroom dancing. So
Whoa.
it's
What
been,
do you think of this move? Huh? Huh? Do I have it?
yeah, we can work with that.
You're kind. Now, Jay, were you in junior high school and you said, I want to review things, or did you start as a playwright, or where did that all come from?
Well, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, right outside New York, and when I was 12, my parents took me and my brother, my two older brothers, to Broadway for me for the first time. We saw the musical 1776. This was, I'm old enough that this was the original production. And I'm watching all these actors on stage reenacting the creation of the Declaration of Independence and wondering if they're actually going to sign it. And I've seen that show in the movie, I don't know how many times, and every time I still wonder, are they going to approve it? And I just was, captivated by it. And every Christmas vacation, we went to see another show, and I realized now how big a deal that was for my father to be able to take 5 people. And one year, I can't remember which show it was, my oldest brother asked my parents what the critics said about that show. And I don't remember this conversation at all, but I've heard it many times from my parents. And I supposedly said, "What's a critic?" And that's when I was in junior or senior high school when I found out that there was a job where someone paid you to go to the theater and then write what you think. And I always wanted to talk about what we had seen. I never had that feeling that, I don't know how, they talk about it in the chorus line, how many dancers went to see the Red Shoes or Cinderella or something and, oh, I want to do that, or the Nutcracker. I know a lot of actors had seen some performance that made them want to be on stage. I did perform in the chorus and in high school. We did a musical review. It was never like we did a real show. It was just created by our drama teacher. And if I wasn't a critic, I probably would have been involved in community theater because it seemed like a good way to meet people and be creative. But I wouldn't do that now. I've had individual experiences like that, but I don't embarrass myself or.
Oh, please do. This show is all about embarrassment. Yes.
But so once I knew about this, I wrote reviews in my high school paper. I did it in college and pursued it while I was starting my career in Washington at United Press International. When I came to Sarasota as a news editor, I was asked early on what my goals were, and I said I wanted to be a theater critic one day, thinking that maybe when I'm 50, I might work my way into a paper in a city that had enough theater to have a critic. And by the time I was 27 or 28, I had this job. So I've been doing it for a long time.
I've got to ask, what was your first published review for the Sarasota Herald Tribune?
Oh my God. I think my first review was the play Light Up the Sky by Moss Hart. And I don't remember if that was with George Kaufman or not.
I think it was just Moss Hart alone, but maybe it might have been Kaufman.
It was at the oldest community theater in our area, or the oldest performing arts organization, the Sarasota Players, which is in its 96th year. And it was very controversial at the time because there was a Black actress and a white actor who were playing a married couple, and that was, I think, the first time there had ever been, that wasn't.
It wasn't done.
It wasn't required in the script. It just happened to be that's who they cast, and I was new in town. I didn't know. It didn't strike me at all, and people were, can you believe? Yeah, it was kind of shocking. That was in the
All right, so I
Mi-
have to. I'll get back to you, Carrie. I promise. But
No worries.
now, since it was your first, you were trying to make the big splash, and you were trying to go and tell people about this show. Did you feel you sensed the quote unquote controversy around this? Did you address it, or did you didn't
I
even
don't think
leave?
I don't think that really hit me. I mean, this was a I was working as an assistant city editor, and the newish features editor asked, found out after that comment that I wanted to be a theater critic that I was interested. So he gave me this assignment on my night off. So they got free work out of me, as they did for 4 years. Um, and so I was just trying to write an intelligent review and capture whatever I felt. And I have the review somewhere pasted on a piece of paper in a drawer. I could show you, but it would take too long to find it. And I probably don't want to read it again. But I just remember trying to write, intelligently and entertainingly, but to impress, this editor. And I did well enough that he, over the course of a year, he gave me 6 or 7 more things to review when one of the other freelance critics they had at the time were not available. So, and by the end of that year, this was 85, they had decided to finally, they've been talking about it, creating a full-time theater critics position for a long time because there was enough theater and then, writing more art stories. And
I mean, this is the brutal thing about Jay is that over, up until your quote unquote retirement a few years ago, you had to be not just the theater critic, you were the TV critic, you were the media critic. Did they send you to movies too? I mean, did you sleep? It was nuts.
oh, I mean, when I joined the features department, it was we had a daily feature section, different themes and stuff, and there was I don't know a staff of 20 people, editors and designers and writers. This was long before Carrie was there, and when I left in September, it was just me. When Carrie left in 21,
When I came, there were 3 full-time arts writers, and then there were 2, Jay and I, and then I left, and then it was Jay alone for a long time.
and
And
then things got cut back. They cut, trimmed the freelance budget, and I was able to hire a visual art writer to do something to relieve me a little bit, so I didn't have to write a main. And stupidly, I was still trying to write as much, produce as much as we'd always produced with a team of people, because the longer you know people and they know how to just sort of nudge you and say, "Oh, can you do something about this?" And having worked at a wire service, I write fast, and so yeah, okay, I have a few minutes, I can write that story, but I shouldn't have. It was too much.
because the
But
press agents went, yeah.
this was part of the reason behind the birth of ArtSpeed, is because this isn't just happening to us or just in Sarasota. This is happening all around the country, is that the arts are not being covered by newspapers as much anymore because newspapers are so diminished. And there are, I think that the only full-time dance critic there is in the US is at the New York Times. The Washington Post used to have a full-time dance critic, but I don't think they do anymore. So, I mean, just the whole shrinking of arts journalism is part of the impetus behind why we wanted to do this new venture.
Now, here's a question I always want to ask dance critics, because I'm not knowledgeable about dance and so forth. I know, having written theater criticism for a million years, I kind of know what to write about a play, whether it's good or bad. I know what to look for. With dance, it always is kind of like I was told by a dance critic that basically when you write a dance review, 80 to 90% is just describe what the hell was up there. And then 10% were you bored or not. I mean, is that it? Is it mostly like just what were they wearing? What was the lighting? What was the music? And to judge it, how do you judge it, Carrie?
Well, I wouldn't agree entirely with whoever said that to you. Yes, you do have to describe somewhat, what the movement was like, or how the music integrated with the movement or what the costumes did. I mean, just like you would in a theater production, you would mention any elements that, that made the production what it was. But for me, I was a dancer before I was a writer. I have studied and taught and danced myself and read a tremendous amount of dance and seen a lot of dance performances. So that all gives me a background to talk about. I always see my reviews as an opportunity to kind of educate people about dance and to take away this idea that if you don't understand everything you're seeing on stage, it's some kind of judgment on you. Dance is theater, you go to the theater and everybody's going to sort of come away with the same story. They may have different interpretations of the story, but dance is even more so that way. I mean, you could take 5 people who saw a dance performance and they would each have a different reaction to what they saw. So I'm just trying to help people sort of not be afraid of it and to value their own reaction to it, and hopefully to give them a little background that may help them understand it a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, why is Twyla Tharp holding a pineapple? Why? What is that? What is that?
Well, I
But
have to say, I mean, I don't go to the ballet as frequently as Carrie because I'm usually at another theater. But when I've gone, the best times for me is if I'm going the same night Carrie is, and I can experience it myself and then read her review the next morning, and then feel like I'm understanding some of what I missed and seeing the language. I mean, that's, as theater critics, you have, like she said, you have a story to relate. So even if you don't like the performances, you can talk about the story and the situations, or there's
or
always
vice versa. If you don't like the story, sometimes the performances are amazing.
right.
Yeah.
And watching a ballet, I'm like, oh, I mean, I've learned a lot reading her reviews. Like, oh, I see something here with the patterns that are going on, or you start to feel something if you open yourself up, because I'm waiting to understand what they're doing. I'm waiting for the story. And a lot of what I see is not really a story. It's just, it is, somebody's telling a story, but it's with patterns and other things that, may not hit us as theater people the same way it does people who just, love dance the way we love theater.
So much of contemporary dance is abstract. It's not narrative. And people's tendency is to want a narrative. They want a story. They want a tidy little package. And when I go review a contemporary performance, an abstract piece, I'll go out at intermission and I'll be descended on by people saying, what did that mean? What was that all about? And really, there is no one person who can tell you that. Even the choreographers will say, well, what did you think it meant? What did it mean to you? So that, I think, there's always that friction between people wanting a nice little tidy story, which ballet in the beginning, the story ballets did have.
Yeah, the swan dies. Boom.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But a lot of dance is not that anymore.
I mean, Sarasota Ballet a couple of years ago, a few more than a couple, did a world premiere of a version of Comedy of Errors, and that was that David Bentley?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, I know that story. I could see how he was changing it to suit whatever characters he had established, but they had the matching costumes or paired costumes, so you knew who the twins were, and it was very clever. It was hilariously done.
It was very well.
And I've seen other Shakespeare ballets that they're much more serious and didn't move me as much. This was one of my favorite dance experiences ever. So
now let me ask again. Before we were decrying the deaths, near deaths of newspapers and magazines and TV stations back in the day. You put on TV in New York, at least, and they have Pia Lindstrom or they have Stuart Klein reviewing their latest Broadway show. But where are you guys on the democratizing of criticism in the extent that, yeah, you can't open a newspaper and see a review of X shows anymore. There's no newspaper to read, but there's probably a website or a Substack or a Reddit where these people are chiming in about the show they saw last night, and they're not dumb people necessarily. Where are you on all that?
I look at Reddit frequently lately, but it's more for the gossip and stuff that is on there. I've been fascinated. I was in New York in November and I saw chess, and I've been fascinated by the widely divergent opinions about that revival. And I think that I like to know something about the person whose work I'm reading, that I know that they have, they take it seriously, that it's not just a fan, which doesn't mean that person, a fan can't have intelligent opinions, but that maybe they did some training and studying, as I know you have, to do this job well, to understand the history of theater and how it applies to whatever you're seeing today. And as Carrie, has had a lifetime of participating in and understanding dance. I don't know who all those people are who are writing. I think it's great that the dichotomy of this is there's this explosion of opinions out there, just as newspaper editors and other editors and producers are saying that no one's interested in this stuff because stories about the arts don't get the kind of attention online that other subjects do. But why is there so much out there? I mean, maybe my world is focused on that.
Yeah,
Because
it's a
that's
niche and a
about,
wormhole. You can go to Broadway, all that chat, doc, and the same 30 people are
right.
Yeah.
But
What
I
about,
mean, I think it's great it's fine to have other people's opinions, but I also think there's nothing to have someone who's been, in the rare occasions these days when you can have a consistent voice of somebody who's watched, Carrie's watched the Sarasota Ballet grow for the last 15 years, and which is half of its history. The West Coast Black Theater Troupe, started while I was the critic, so I have seen just about everything they've done. So there's something to be said for that long view, which doesn't take away from the immediacy of a review, writing a review of this production, but you understand how it fits into the community and to the history of that organization.
I would just add that I think anyone is entitled to their opinion of a dance performance. And there, are many, many avenues for people to write about it now. And I don't discourage that at all. I do get a bit frustrated when someone starts writing about ballet, for example. When I write a piece about ballet, although I'm a former dancer and I know all the ballet terms and I could use them all, I try to write for an audience that doesn't know anything about dance, because it doesn't say much to me when somebody writes and says, well, she did 32 fouettes and then she did this little battery and then she did very technical terms that don't mean anything to most people, in an effort to kind of show off how much that writer knows about ballet. To me, the only reason to write is to try to convey something to someone else. So it doesn't make much sense to write about it just to fuel your own ego or something.
if I were writing, yeah.
I have to share this quick story. Right after I became the theater critic, it was a few nights before I got to review a play. My first night I reviewed Mel Torme, and the second night I reviewed the Central Ballet of China. At that time, my experience with ballet, I know I had seen the Nutcracker. I probably had seen something else, but I knew nothing about dance. So I took one of my work colleagues who studied dance years ago, and so I could at least ask her questions if I needed to. And the Central Ballet of China was doing kind of Western thing, but I didn't know anything. This was a very last minute assignment that I got, like 2 hours before it happened. And I wrote a review, and my boss, who was trying to be supportive and understanding, because it's my second day, I'm trying to establish some credibility with readers, and I used the term pas de deux, and which was one of the few terms I knew. And he said he was happy because I got that in there, and I sounded intelligent, and that was all that mattered at the
You
time.
just think it one positive. If you filled a review with that, he would have been like, "No, our readers wouldn't." But this makes you sound smart. It's correct. Okay,
Right.
one is like a little jewel on the resume. I would just be like, "She moved her leg." Oh, she moved her leg down. That would be the extent of my knowledge. Now, Carrie, before I forget, you have this whole other, I don't want to call it a sideline, but I guess it is, that is somewhat connected to the arts, but somewhat not. I did bring up the that you have another organization involved in treating and caring for and understanding mental illness that came out of personal experience. So please share.
Right. Well, I've been a journalist my entire adult life, which, as anyone looking at me can see, is a long time. And I've worn a lot of different hats. I've been a feature writer. I've been a restaurant critic. I've been a travel writer. I've
Sports?
done, I started out as a sports writer, covering NBA basketball, and I'm 5'4". So,
You tower over me, by the way, but okay, yes.
So although, the arts and dance in particular have always been a big part of my life, they haven't been the only part of my journalism life. And in fact, after I did a few years at the Herald Tribune as an arts writer, I became the lead city columnist. And I was the columnist for about 6 or 7 years. So I've done a lot of different things. The mental health aspect did come out of a personal situation. I have an adult son who went through a mental health crisis right when I moved to Florida to take my job with the Sarasota Herald Tribune. And it was a very difficult time. And Florida is one of the lowest states in the union in terms of providing mental health care and services. So I ended up writing about that, which got a lot of attention. It won a national award. And so then that subsequently led me to apply for a fellowship from the Carter Center in Atlanta. So Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter's wife, started a program 35, 40 years ago to improve writing about mental illness so that it wasn't written in a way that stigmatized people. So I applied for a fellowship from the Carter Foundation. I was fortunate to be one of 8 journalists across the country who got it. And I did a year-long community project here in Sarasota that involved, it was an art and journalism project. So the 2 parts were that every week I interviewed someone who was in recovery from a mental health situation. And the other part was that I held open art workshops where anybody who had any kind of mental health condition could come and create a self-portrait that put into their artwork how they felt about their condition. And so the whole thing culminated with 52 articles that had run during the year and about 90 pieces of art that were in an exhibition that hung in the middle of town for about a month.
But there's a website, facingmi.substack.com. It's still going on. I mean,
That's the ongoing. So that project lasted for a year, and then it kind of went on hiatus for a while I was doing my column for the Herald Tribune. And then when I left the Herald Tribune, I brought it back and continued doing the profiles, and also created a podcast where I interviewed people with lived mental health experience. So we've continued to do a number of arts projects involving people with mental health experience as well.
And I do have to ask, how's your son?
He's great. He's doing very well. And he is a ballroom dancer also, and a pianist. He plays in a little jazz duo called the Jazzberries.
Okay, all right. We got so many plugs. We got, artsbeat.org, facingmi.substack.com, the Jazzberries. We can put that one down. You
Speaking of
mentioned
bugs, I have to ask you, your background you've got in is that the Oslo
that is
Theater?
the Oslo. Good eye.
Very
Good eye.
I mean,
familiar.
I'm looking at it at first and thinking, oh, it's just the inside of a theater. And then I started noticing all the little decorative touches that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, you guys
thank
have
you.
mentioned, you brought up being in Florida, and of course, the money there not being for perhaps social services, considering you've got the governor, the outgoing governor DeSantis and stuff. I mean, what is it like being, I'm assuming, pretty liberal people, artsy people, in a state that a lot of people won't even go to because it is such a conservative administration, running things.
It's been interesting because I have tried, while I was working at the paper, I tried not to let politics get in the way of what I was writing. Though sometimes you can't help it when you watch something and I mean, I just saw a play about, a one-man play about Dwight Eisenhower, and
Eisenhower, yeah.
that was performed in New York, I think, by John Rubinstein, but they have a different actor as a Florida Studio Theater. And, this play is clearly written as a response to Donald Trump because it's countering, presenting, it's an argument for why Eisenhower should have been ranked higher than he was in 1962 as like the 22nd out of 34 presidents. And today he is ranked higher. And it sort of sounds like Donald Trump complaining about not being appreciated more. But I I know that there are arts groups that have had trouble getting young people to come to work here. Partly it's the cost of living in Sarasota and the lack of affordable housing that they talk about it all the time, but nothing ever seems to happen. And there are some theaters, like especially when they started going after the gay community, the trans community. There are a lot of a lot of behind the scenes people who just didn't want to be in a state where their lives might feel jeopardized. Um, and the state has been very up and down with funding the arts. 2 years ago, the governor vetoed all the programming funding. There was like 20, $30 million or something. I may be getting that number confused with a different year because he objected to money going to the Orlando and Tampa Fringe festivals. And the way the budget set up, he couldn't just veto those two items. He had to veto the whole budget. But it just seems, that was like $100,000 out of millions. So everybody paid a price, and it's hard. And
That said, Sarasota has a population of very avid arts followers, and many of them moved to Sarasota in particular from the Northeast, from the Chicago area, because there is such a concentration of arts here. So while the county itself, Sarasota County, is quite red, Sarasota City is much more liberal. And again, many of the people who moved here to retire moved here specifically because of the arts offering and
Sounds
are
like
very
Austin, Texas, a bit. Austin is this hub in the midst of Texas. But,
I don't know if I would go that far
yeah.
with how liberal Sarasota is, but
Right.
it is a rough equivalent.
Okay. We are, by the way, speaking with Jay Handelman and Carrie Seidman. They are the co-founders of artsbeat.org, artsbeat.org, which is getting Southwestern Florida theater, on the map, on a website that you can go to for free. It'll be stories as well as reviews of theater and dance and other arts, the plastic arts too, or are you not going there? Like,
We're hoping to touch on everything. I mean, we have our backgrounds in theater and dance, which we're going to focus on in the beginning. Excuse me.
oh, yeah.
We also, hope to be able to employ some freelancers to cover visual arts, we have a very rich museum and art gallery environment here as well. And the other thing we didn't mention is that we're also beginning an internship program to work with kids from the local or students from the local high schools and colleges who might want to become arts journalists themselves, so that when Jay and I move on, and whenever that may be, that
40 years, 50 years. Yeah, okay, yeah.
there will be someone to keep this going and keep the coverage sustained.
That maybe, you know, we have news backgrounds, so the journalism backgrounds. If we go to a performance and the theater burns down, we could deal with that.
Either one.
Which not a lot of critics can do because they don't know. A lot of, I mean, even some of the freelancers I've worked with over the years they were great as a critic, but to do a feature, to do an interview with somebody that I mean, they could talk to people, but they didn't know how to put it together. And so it's going to be hard to find people who have that kind of combination of background of this passion for a particular art form and ability to comment on it, but also an ability to report on it. But we want to mentor. I mean, I'd love nothing more than to take, you know, some young people to a show and maybe let them review a community theater performance and talk about it with them to help them get out of them what they think about it. And so it's not me. And, you know, help. And then maybe, you know, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, if this program works that we find some right people, I'm sure there'll be people who enjoy it, but that's not what they want to do. But, you know, all these people you're talking about who are out there online commenting, maybe there are people out there who are doing that, who also have an interest in telling stories.
And we're also hopeful that, you know, Sarasota is a very old demographic, and Jay and I are obviously not young, but a lot of the, you know, what people are seeing and what they want is different for younger people than it is for our demographic. So we're really hoping that they can help us understand, you know, what younger generations are looking for in the arts and what they find exciting and what, you know, how they'd like to cover it.
Well, speaking of which, for our last question for Jay Handelman and Carrie Seidman, in terms of what you're looking for and what's excited you over the past year, let's say, what have been the best things that you've seen artistically in your neck of the woods?
Yeah.
This is, I should have been warned about this question. I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what I saw. I'll start and I'll say, I mean, just right off the top of my head, in the fall, the Oslo Repertory Theater did a production of Come From Away, which they were planning to do a new version of Moving Out, the Billy Joel Twyla Tharp musical, but that's been pushed back to give it more time to develop. And Twyla Tharp's planning to do something with singing dancers as opposed to just dancers, the way it was originally on Broadway. Anyway, so they had the rights to do Come From Away, as a lot of theaters are doing. And I saw it on Broadway. I saw it twice on tour. And, you know, I love the show in a way, but, you know, I don't love the music. There was individual parts of it I don't think are that great. Well, this just blew me away. It was so intelligently, cleverly designed and directed, lots of little visual touches on the set that I hadn't seen before because every version I had seen was the same from the original. And it just was thrilling. And people were talking about it everywhere I went. And we've been working on a story about the state of the arts. And one of the sad things is people talked about it so much, everybody assumed it was sold out, and it wasn't. But it was a really memorable thing. And if I had a list of everything, I would give you another example, and I'm going to let Carrie.
I saw it Come From Away also, and it was a great show. I really enjoyed it. As far as dance, the Sarasota Ballet had some wonderful dancers who unfortunately moved on over the summer, but there's a dancer named Macarena Jimenez, who's now with Miami City Ballet, who was just a delight to watch in pretty much anything that she did.
But she didn't actually do the Macarena, did she?
I know.
No, you knew that was coming. You knew that line was coming. Say, hey, Macarena. No, she did not. Totally different kind of ballet sort of move there. But she was great. So,
but
cool.
the other thing that I found, I don't know that it was the best performance I saw all year, but it's been really interesting to watch this Azara Ballet Company, which started, 3 years ago. And the first show that they did, I kind of thought, I don't know, I think they're going to have a really hard time making their mark here. And they've just matured a lot over the last 2 years, and are doing some really interesting choreography. And and Sarasota Contemporary Dance, which has just got a really strong company. It's all female company, but really doing some really strong work too. So yeah, it's for a town this size to have all these dance things going on is really wonderful.
Well, it has been really wonderful chatting with Jay Handelman and Carrie Seidman, the co-founders of artsbeat.org. Please check it out. It is free, and they're going to be putting up more. You don't have to be in Florida to be interested, as you can see.
Please subscribe, and please consider donating to support it, because making it free, making it available, which is a relatively new journalism model, is a challenge. And without support, we won't be able to keep doing it. So we're gonna get through at least a year, and hopefully many more, so we can do more interviews with you.
Well, that would be absolutely.
And we'll get you on our podcast after we
once
get
we get started.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the theater that I saw in Florida. I know I saw some when Atka went there. I saw theater in Key West when we were there. I just don't remember what it was, but I'll rack my brains and my playbills. But it would be an honor. And it's been wonderful talking to both of you. And last word of the day, of course, jazzberries. Anywho, thank you guys.
My son will appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful
Dave.
2026.
You too.
You too.